In the late summer of 357 AD, the fate of Europe hung in the balance as two mighty forces converged near Argentoratum, what we now know as Strasbourg, on the very edge of the Roman world. The air was thick with tension, anticipation, and the distant sound of marching feet. Soldiers from both sides, hardened by years of conflict, prepared themselves for a confrontation that would echo through history. The mighty Rhine River, a natural barrier and a symbol of division, marked the border between the ordered civilization of Rome and the untamed, mysterious lands of Germania. Its waters had witnessed countless struggles, serving as both a shield and a challenge for those who dared to cross. For centuries, this volatile frontier had been a battleground, a place where the ambitions of emperors and the dreams of tribal kings collided. Here, the fate of empires could be decided in a single brutal day, and the scars of old battles still marked the land. On one side stood the disciplined, battle-hardened legions of Rome, their armor gleaming in the sun, banners snapping in the wind. They were led by the young and ambitious Caesar Julian, a man determined to prove his worth not just to his soldiers, but to the entire Roman Empire. Opposing them was a confederation of fierce Germanic tribes, the Alammani, united under a powerful king. These warriors, driven by a hunger for new lands and glory, had come together to challenge Rome's dominance and seize the rich, fertile lands of Gaul for themselves. Years of relentless Alammani raids had left Roman Gaul in a state of fear and uncertainty. Villages lay in ruins, their people scattered or enslaved, and the once mighty Roman defenses had been stretched thin, struggling to hold back the tide of invaders. In response, Emperor Constantius II placed his trust in Julian, sending him to restore order, rebuild the shattered defenses, and drive the tribes back across the Rhine. The weight of an empire rested on Julian's shoulders as he prepared for the coming storm. The battle that was about to unfold would not only decide the security of Gaul, but also shape the destiny of the Roman frontier for generations to come. Every soldier, every leader, knew that the outcome would be remembered for centuries. As dawn broke over the misty fields outside Argentoratum, both armies stood ready, their fates intertwined. Everything hung in the balance on that fateful day, as the world watched and waited for the clash of empires to begin. At the head of the Roman forces stood Flavius Claudius Julianus, better known as Julian the Philosopher. Far more than just a military commander, Julian was a man of letters, a scholar deeply versed in philosophy and the classics, who had been unexpectedly thrust into the chaos of war. His appointment as leader was met with skepticism by many, who saw only a bookish youth, untested in the brutal realities of battle. Yet Julian quickly shattered these doubts. He lived among his soldiers, sharing their rations, enduring the same hardships, and marching alongside them through mud and rain. By refusing the comforts of high command, he earned their respect and loyalty, forging a powerful bond with his men. His willingness to lead from the front, to face danger alongside his troops, inspired confidence and admiration. Julian's leadership was a blend of intellect and bravery. He meticulously planned his strategies, studying the terrain and enemy movements, but when the moment came, he did not hesitate to charge into the fray himself. This rare combination of careful planning and personal courage transformed him from a scholar into a formidable general, one who could command both minds and hearts. Opposing him was Chnodomar, the towering king of the Alammani. Chnodomar was everything Julian was not, a seasoned warrior, renowned for his physical strength, battlefield experience, and unyielding ferocity. He had led his people through countless conflicts, earning a reputation as a fearsome and charismatic leader. Chnodomar's leadership style was direct and personal. He fought at the very front of his army, wielding his sword with deadly skill, and his presence alone was enough to rally his warriors. His confidence was infectious, and his men believed in his ability to lead them to victory. Convinced of his own superiority, Chnodomar openly mocked Julian, dismissing him as an inexperienced student unworthy of command. With a massive host at his back, he believed the Romans would be easily swept aside, and he made no secret of his contempt for their young leader. But this confrontation was more than just a clash of armies. It was a dramatic duel between two radically different leaders, one a philosopher general, the other a warrior king, each representing the unique strengths and traditions of their people. The fate of the battlefield would be decided not just by numbers or weapons, but by the character and resolve of these two men. The philosopher general faced the warrior king, each embodying the hopes and fears of their nations. Their rivalry, charged with tension and ambition, would shape not only the outcome of the battle, but the destiny of all who followed them. The fate of Gaul, and perhaps the future of the entire Roman Empire, rested on their shoulders, as the armies gathered for the decisive confrontation. As dawn broke over the fields near Strasbourg, the stage was set for a drama that would echo through history. Julian's Roman army was the product of centuries of evolution, professional, disciplined, and relentless. The core was the heavy infantry legionaries in armor, wielding spears and swords, trained to fight as a single, unbreakable unit. Discipline was everything. Soldiers drilled endlessly, building endurance and absolute obedience. On the battlefield, this meant holding firm even against terrifying enemy charges. The Romans trusted their training, their officers, and each other. Supporting the infantry were cavalry, archers, and slingers, giving Roman generals tactical flexibility. Julian knew how to use every element, creating a balanced, deadly force. At Strasbourg, the Romans were outnumbered, but their discipline gave them hope. They stood firm, believing in their training and their leader. Iron-willed discipline would be their greatest weapon. The Alammani Force was a fearsome confederation of Germanic tribes united for plunder. Each warrior owed loyalty to his own chief, making the army vast but loosely organized. Their strength lay in individual bravery, size, and overwhelming numbers. Ammianus estimated 35,000 men. Most fought on foot, armed with spears, axes, and shields, but only the wealthiest had armor. Their main tactic was the massed charge, forming a wedge to smash enemy lines with brute force. Frenzied and chanting, they relied on shock and awe to break morale before contact. Against undisciplined foes, this often worked, but it was risky against a steady line. At Strasbourg, Cnodamar was confident his warriors would overwhelm the Romans in a single, decisive blow. Everything depended on the power of their initial assault. The Battle of Strasbourg was about more than territory. It was a fight for the future of Roman Gaul. This was not just another clash on the empire's long and troubled frontier. It was a turning point, a moment when the fate of an entire province, and perhaps the empire itself, hung in the balance. The soldiers who marched to battle that day knew they were fighting for something far greater than themselves. Gaul was vital. Rich in land, people, and taxes, it fueled the empire's strength. Its fertile fields fed Roman cities, its bustling towns filled the imperial treasury, and its people provided both soldiers and workers. Without Gaul, Rome would lose not only a key source of wealth, but also a crucial buffer against the chaos beyond its borders. Years of raids had devastated the region. If Julian failed, Rome could lose Gaul forever. Villages lay in ruins, fields were abandoned, and families fled in terror. The scars of invasion were everywhere, and hope was fading fast. The people of Gaul looked to Rome for protection, but the empire's grip was slipping. The Rhine was the empire's critical frontier, guarded by forts and watchtowers, the limes. This river marked the edge of Roman civilization, a line that separated order from chaos, Roman law from tribal custom. For centuries it had held back the Germanic tribes, but now that line was under threat as never before. Recent invasions showed this line was failing. A decisive victory was needed to restore Roman authority. The enemy had breached the defenses, exposing the weakness of Rome's once mighty border. Only a bold and clear triumph could send a message that Rome was still strong, still able to defend its lands and its people. For Julian, the battle was a personal trial. Victory would silence his critics and secure his position. He was young, untested, and surrounded by doubters. The outcome at Strasbourg would determine whether he was seen as a true leader or just another failed commander in a time of crisis. Defeat could end his career and threaten his life. The stakes were as high as they could be, not just for Julian but for everyone who depended on Rome's protection. Failure would mean disaster not only for him, but for the entire Western Empire. The outcome would shape the struggle between Rome and the Germanic tribes for generations. A Roman victory could restore hope and stability, while defeat would open the door to further invasions and chaos. The echoes of this battle would be felt for centuries, influencing the destiny of Europe itself. Strasbourg was a clash of civilizations, with the fate of the West at stake. It was more than a military engagement. It was a struggle between two worlds, two ways of life, and two visions for the future. The outcome would decide which would prevail. The result would echo far beyond the battlefield. The legacy of Strasbourg would shape the course of history, leaving its mark on the land, the people, and the very idea of what it meant to be Roman. On a sweltering August day, Julian led 13,000 Romans out to face the waiting Alammani. The Romans formed a solid line, elite legions in the center, auxiliaries on the flanks, cavalry on the right, and reserves behind. Julian positioned himself with the reserves ready to direct the battle. The Alammani roared and surged forward, aiming their main assault at the Roman center. The Roman front braced, shields locked as the first wave crashed into them with brutal force. The line bent but did not break, discipline holding firm. The fighting became a desperate close-quarter struggle, swords against axes, shield against shield. On the right, Alammani cavalry attacked, throwing the Roman horsemen into confusion. A senior Roman officer fell, and the cavalry began to retreat, threatening disaster. If the flank collapsed, the entire Roman army could be surrounded. As the Roman cavalry wavered, Julian acted instantly. He rode to the retreating horsemen, rallying them with words of duty and courage. Inspired by his presence, the cavalry reformed and charged back into the fight, stabilizing the flank. This act of leadership was the turning point. Julian's courage electrified the army. With the flank secure, the brutal struggle in the center continued. The Romans, exhausted but determined, held their ground. Alammani fury gave way to exhaustion. Their casualties mounted. Roman reserves reinforced the line, maintaining relentless pressure. The Alammani formation began to waver, gaps appearing as men fell or fled. Sensing victory, Roman officers ordered a general advance. The Roman line surged forward, shattering the enemy. The Alammani broke and fled. The battle was won. The Roman victory was overwhelming. As the Alammani fled, Roman cavalry pursued them to the Rhine, cutting down many as they ran. Others drowned trying to escape across the river. King Chnodomar was captured, ending his reign in humiliation. Roman losses were light. The Alammani suffered thousands dead. The defeat shattered the Alammani's power for years. Julian treated Chnodomar with respect, sending him to the emperor as a prize. The victory was celebrated across the army. Julian's reputation soared. He pressed his advantage, leading raids across the Rhine, burning villages, and forcing the release of Roman captives. Julian rebuilt the Rhine defenses, restoring peace and security to Gaul. The battle was the centerpiece of a strategy to reassert Roman dominance in the West. A single victory had changed the strategic balance. Strasbourg stands as one of Rome's last great infantry victories, a testament to discipline and leadership. Julian's triumph restored faith in the legions and made him a hero, setting the stage for his rise to emperor. The battle became a symbol of Roman resilience, but it did not end the conflict with the Germanic tribes. It was part of a long struggle that would reshape Europe. Strasbourg showed how discipline and leadership could overcome numbers. It highlighted the growing power of the Germanic peoples, foreshadowing the challenges Rome would face. For historians, it's a classic case of a smaller, organized force defeating a larger, chaotic one. On the banks of the Rhine, Rome won a precious reprieve, a victory whose echoes still resound in history.